Get the most out of the weights. Don't let the weights get the most out of you. This is a quote by the famous powerlifting and strength coach Louis Simmons, who of course passed here a couple years ago at the age of 75. After coaching over 100 world record holders in powerlifting and quite a few elite athletes in other sports. And really though, I'm applying this to bodybuilding concepts, but he used to kind of say the same thing, right? It really was the same thing. Again, we're talking about a guy who got people to insane strength levels, but he would always say we should usually be using, if possible, use the lightest weight that you can to get stronger. Okay? Other than, again, max effort work where you were going for a 1 rep max, that was usually his approach. And it's the same idea when it comes to building muscle, because keep in mind, a lot of people used to joke that Louis was secretly turning people into bodybuilders with all the really high rep accessory work. Because, again, he was very big on that. Like 70% of his programs were built around that. And a lot of it were isolation movements, right? Isolate the triceps, isolate the hamstrings, all these things, right? Delta exercise, isolation movement. So, but one of the things he would point out is, we should be getting good form. And that's kind of the idea. You'll see people cheating a lot. They're throwing weights around, and they will point out that, well, some pro bodybuilders do, and it's like, okay, fine, but some of the best pro bodybuilders ever also use absurdly strict form and control. Okay, so you can't use that argument, especially if they later got beat by someone who used stricter form, just saying. And keep in mind, then look at the injury rates of a lot of the guys who use the looser form, especially with the really heavy weights, right? It came at a price. And what you have to remember with muscles only care about the tension applied on them. Okay, now that tension, we oftentimes say, what's the best way to increase tension is to increase weight, but that assumes that nothing changes. Like cheating up more weight doesn't increase tension. Adding more weight with the same exact form in the exact same range of motion, that is what increases tension, okay? Or even creating a longer moment arm somewhere. Putting the muscle into a position to where it has the most mechanical tension on it. Like, so you can increase tension on the pectoral by touching your chest on the bench instead of not touching, or by going to, say, a wider grip, things like that, right? Anything that puts more leverage against that pectoral muscle is increasing the tension on it, okay? And it's oftentimes the exact opposite. When people cheat or use certain techniques, they're reducing tension on the muscle. Therefore, they can lift more weight, okay? Do we understand the difference? But if our goal is to maximize muscle mass and minimize fatigue and minimize injury, we have to be thinking in these terms. Okay, so watch the benching here. Wide grip benching, all controlled, not really using leg drive, right? Using a tiny amount, because I have a powerlifting background, it's hard to turn it off. It's automatic. But nice wide grip, flat back, control. Same thing here with the pull-ups, and yes, I do these wide grips, so the ranges of motion are a little different. But, I'm trying not to swing, right? Put my feet behind me. Control the eccentric a little bit, right? Try to make everything smooth, everything controlled. This is what will give us the most muscle growth with the lightest weight. Okay? And it matters because a lot of times when we're flinging heavier weights around, I'll get to injuries in a second, but again, we're also increasing systemic fatigue, right? And I would tell people that we don't need our systemic fatigue going up on all these different movements. We get enough of that from the big exercises, all right? Your squats and deadlifts and things like that, those really big movements put a lot of systemic fatigue on your body, okay? You don't have if you're training those hard, you don't have a whole lot of that left to go around. And if you start using it up on the smaller exercises, you won't have any of it left for the big exercises. You're just going to be beat up. You're going to be more fatigued. It's going to take you longer to recover. So if you're swinging a curl around, or you're bouncing and hitching a deadlift around so that you have to use more weight to get the same reps, and guess what? You're going to create more fatigue for the same amount of muscle growth. Same thing with your benching. You're bouncing it off your chest. Like, yeah, but instead of 3 reps, I can get 8 reps that way. People do that with the deadlifts also. Okay, you bounce it off your chest and you're lifting your butt off the bench. You get 8 to 10 reps with your 3 rep max. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you the muscles were simply not working as hard. Because if you had done it strict, you would only get 3 reps because your pectorals would simply give out there. They've used up everything they had with 3 reps with that weight. They had to work harder. Well, the muscles working harder and having more tension applied to them does what? That's what causes them to grow. The reason you're able to get more reps is there was less tension on them, particularly at the point where there's the most tension applied to the muscle, right off the chest. Okay? See where we're going with that? So you're just increasing fatigue. You're not increasing the work that the muscles have actually done. You're reducing the work the muscles have done so that you can throw around more weight or do more reps at the same weight. But the muscles aren't doing it. Therefore, you're not working them as effectively. All you are doing is accumulating fatigue in your body that it has to recover from. And you can get away with that when you're young and you're weak. You get your squat up to 500 pounds. It becomes a lot harder to recover from nonsense, right? You're going to have to start being a lot more strict, usually well before that. And by doing so, you're going to recover better. And if you recover better, we can grow better, and we're going to feel better also. We're not going to be as tired all the time. We're not going to be as beat up. All right, then we come to the injury side. The injury risk is there. You're increasing injury risk. Okay? There's no need to do that. If we work efficiently and work effectively, we minimize our overall fatigue. We maximize our hypertrophy. We train everything through nice stretch positions, lengthened positions on everything. We're going to be more resilient to injury. We're going to recover faster. But when we start swinging and cheating, that's when the overuse injuries start to become a problem, because overuse is the biggest cause. But using bad form with heavier weights than we can handle, or doing a bunch of partials, right? We start doing all that stuff, what happens? We are subject to a much higher injury rate. And so even if you could have gained the same muscle, and you'll see that with certain pro bodybuilders, they use tons of gear, genetically gifted, they recover better. So they got away with it on the stimulus at the fatigue side. They didn't get away with it on the injury side. And again, we come down to what we know makes muscles grow. Had all those bodybuilders who did get hurt, had they just used stricter form, they probably wouldn't have been hurt, and they would have been just as big and jacked. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.